When you picture the Great Wall of China, you probably see this massive stone dragon snaking across the mountains, right? A symbol of ancient power. But for this explainer, we're going to peel back that myth. We're going to look at it as a project manager would, as one of the most ridiculously ambitious engineering projects in human history. So let's analyze how on earth they actually pulled this off.
First, let's just try to wrap our heads around this scale. The entire Great Wall system, with all its branches and fortifications, stretches over 21,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, that is more than half the distance around the entire planet. That is just a mind-boggling number, no matter what era you're in.
And get this, it wasn't built in a decade or even a century. The construction was an ongoing effort, a mega project passed down from dynasty to dynasty for over 2,000 years. Can you imagine a single project staying on the books, being adapted and continued for that long? It's absolutely incredible.
Which brings us to the big question, the reason we're here. The popular story is that the wall was built purely on the backs of millions of laborers, just sheer muscle and manpower. But does that really add up? Could brute force alone create something this vast, this complex, and this enduring? Or was there something more? A sophisticated system, a masterclass in project management, hiding in plain sight?
Okay, let's start with the people. How do you even begin to manage the human resources for something like this? Mobilizing, organizing, and just keeping a workforce of this size alive was a monumental HR challenge. We're literally talking about the population of a major modern city, working out on a remote, dangerous frontier. Well, the first clue to their genius is that the labor force wasn't just one giant, chaotic mob. No, it was a very carefully managed mix of three totally different groups, each sourced and managed in a specific way to keep the whole machine running. And check this out. You can see just how systematic this was. First, you have your professional soldiers, your core construction crew, like the 300,000 men under General Meng Tian. They provided security and the main building expertise. Then you had peasants, conscripted through a system of required service to the emperor. And finally, the justice system supplied convicts, who were sentenced to hard labor. Each group was a different piece of the puzzle, filling a specific need in the master plan. So, the next obvious question is, how do you feed 1 million people in the middle of nowhere? The answer was absolutely brilliant. The Tun Tian system. Instead of trying to run a 1,000-kilometer-long supply line, which would have been impossible, they just created self-sufficient colonies. Soldiers and workers became part-time farmers, growing their own food right there on site. This decentralized approach was the only way it could have ever worked. And speaking of logistics, that brings us to the next enormous challenge, the supply chain. We're talking about moving millions of tons of stone, brick, and dirt, often straight up the side of a mountain. This required a whole other level of logistical genius. So what was their core strategy? Well, it was agile, it was adaptive. They didn't have one single supply chain. They had hundreds of local ones. In the mountains, they quarried local stone for maximum strength. But out on the plains or in the desert, they used what they had, dirt. They compacted earth into incredibly dense, durable blocks, even reinforcing it with local plants like reeds. The lesson here is profound. They didn't fight the environment, they worked with it. And you can really see their problem-solving skills and how they moved all this stuff. You know, they didn't have cranes or trucks. They had to get creative. So yeah, you had human chains passing bricks hand to hand up a mountain. But you also had simple machines like levers and pulleys, and even incredible ropeways with baskets to send materials flying across deep ravines. It was a masterclass in low-tech, high-ingenuity solutions. Now, if you're a project manager, a massive, scattered project with a constantly changing workforce, well, that's a recipe for a quality control nightmare. So how did they make sure the wall they were building would actually last for millennia? Turns out they had some remarkably modern systems for accountability. This is just fantastic. During the Ming Dynasty, some of the bricks were actually stamped with the name of the person who made it, their unit, and the date it was made. You can think of it like an ancient serial number. If any section of the wall crumbled or failed inspection, you could trace it right back to the source. It created this powerful, built-in system of personal accountability. But the secret to the wall's incredible durability also came down to chemistry. The Ming-era builders used a kind of high-tech mortar, made from sticky rice. I'm not kidding. They mixed a sticky rice soup with standard lime mortar.
The organic compounds from the rice created this super strong, super water-resistant bond that helped sections of the walls survive centuries of rain and snow.
But here's the kicker. The Great Wall wasn't just a wall. It was a piece of technology. It was a dynamic, high-speed communication network. In an age before electricity, this was the fastest way to send a message across the Chinese Empire, period. All along the wall, there were beacon towers, each one within sight of the next. And they didn't just light one big fire. They used a sophisticated code of smoke puffs by day and beacon fires by night to send detailed messages. As you can see here, this wasn't just a simple, "we're under attack" alarm. They could communicate the actual size of the approaching enemy force. The result was basically an optical telegraph that was stunningly fast. A message could travel hundreds of kilometers in just a few hours, way faster than a horse could gallop. This gave military commanders a massive strategic advantage. They got near real-time intelligence on the threat, its size, and its location, allowing them to send troops exactly where they were needed most.
So let's step back and issue the final verdict from a modern project management perspective. What do we see? We see decentralized execution that empowered local leaders. We see an agile supply chain that adapted to its environment. We see strict accountability systems. And we see a brilliant integrated systems design where the wall was a defense system, a road, and a communication network all in one.
So, in the end, the Great Wall really isn't a monument to brute force. It's a monument to brains. It's a testament to the incredible power of systematic thinking, adaptive strategy, and just relentless, brilliant project management that honestly gives modern practices a run for their money. And that kind of leaves us with a pretty challenging final thought, doesn't it? If ancient engineers could achieve this with the most basic tools, just by using systematic thinking and ingenuity, it really makes you wonder, what modern, impossible projects are we failing to build today, not because we lack the technology, but because we lack the vision?